All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Ask a Local Expert, episode 3. Today, Daniel and I are joined by Mike Kiminas with the Waterworks. And today we are going to talk about underground issues and drain line repairs. So I've got my little helper. So Mike, what can you tell us about some of the common issues you're running into?
Well, it just seems like recently in the past few months, it's been very heavy on water line leaks under the slab inside homes. Usually they're your older homes, not your newer homes. And the other thing that we see a lot of is drain lines also that are breaking down. There again, this is just over years of wear and tear. Soda pop in old galvanized lines breaks down. It really happens just quite a bit in the drain side. On the water side, a lot of times if you've noticed you're hearing something and you're not seeing water, your water heater's running a lot because it could be on the hot side of your heater, can be a cause of that issue. A high water bill. And it's not always an outside leak between the meter and the house. Sometimes it's from inside the house and in that slab, because a lot of times it comes up in the house and then goes back into your slab. There's several reasons for that. I won't get into the reasons why we get those, but a lot of it sometimes because the concrete's up and against the copper. But a lot of times we find it right there at that spot. If not, sometimes we do have to call on a third party to locate, especially on a commercial property more than a residential property. That will lead us into either repair or replace. And that depends where this water line is laying in the slab and what's feeding. A lot of times we can trace it down from the mechanical room to where it feeds, whether it's a toilet, shower, sink. There's a lot of different ways. Sometimes it can be sleeved. A lot of times we can repair them. It's copper. It's okay. We believe in feeling strong with repairing the copper unless you get a second one down the line. But a lot of times it's just that one leak that springs, especially more in a residential than you will on a commercial application. But there again, your insurance may or may not cover this kind of problem that you may have, this issue, to where we're busting up concrete and having to get in and do some things. Now, if it does cause damage above the floor for any reason, an insurance company 90% of the time will take care of it. Some companies will take care of those, but each company is different. I would tell you to always contact a insurance agent to see where your coverage and where your coverage may stop or end, or if there is no coverage. Same goes for the sanitary. I've had it before where an insurance company has said no, and I've had it to where an insurance company has says yes. So there again, it depends who your carrier is on the insurance piece. Same thing with a sanitary as with a water line. When we get a break, we video it, we find it, we locate it, we dig it up and repair it. And a lot of times, with the sanitary line, just because we see it in a small space, most of the time it grows. That line's bad. A lot of times we take it back to a main and then up to the fixture, wherever that fixture may be. We see this, it's a common thing. And there again, sometimes, unfortunately, we do have to bust the floor, remove tile, concrete, things of that nature to access our issues. But and there's other ways that sometimes we can change that also. So it all depends on what you get into, but there is a lot to that. So if you're having a lot of problems, a drain cleaner comes out from any company that says, hey, I'm pulling back mud, that pretty much is telling you that line's shot, and it won't fix itself. You may flow water for a little bit, but you're only going to live on a short period of time with something like that.
So you talk about pulling back mud. What are some of the other signs that homeowners can look for to say, hey, we've got a problem with our water lines underground?
Well, with the water lines underground, there again, if you'll definitely, I don't want to say this, you don't always hear it. The one we went to today was easily heard, and actually it was on his hot side. So when we got close to the leak, the floor was hot and his water heater had been running. So he was a smart individual. He was right on it. He was looking for water everywhere, couldn't find it. And after we went through a couple of things with him, he said, the floor is warm over here. And so it was kind of funny how that worked out, but it worked out very, very well. But in other situations, sometimes it's on the cold line. There again, we go through a series of checks. The biggest problem, and unfortunately sometimes it's late, is somebody receives a water bill. Because if it isn't evident and it doesn't present itself, that's what happens. You see the water bill. And first thing I tell them is make sure you call your water purveyor, let them know. They'll take the sanitary charge off of it because it's a water sewer combination. They measure it by how much water usage you're using. And they're really good about working with you. And once we identify it, we usually will shut that water down and work with any client to, turn it on when they need it, turn it off when they don't, to kind of save from wasting any more water. And, and then try to move fairly quickly, because that's usually generally a larger leak, but there again, it may not show itself. So that's a lot of the problems we catch.
So what homes are you finding these in? Is it typically the older homes, or are you finding these in newer homes?
A lot right now is older homes. You'll find a few things in newer homes, but it's rare. If anything, it could have been construction debris. Maybe somebody had a faulty joint. It happens. They might have passed their test. They did everything right, but they just had a faulty joint or something. Like I said, that's an unfortunate thing that happens every once in a while. But generally, we are finding this in a lot of older homes. These are homes that are probably anywhere from 20 to 60 years old, maybe.
Okay.
So that's all over the city of Dayton. Huber Heights.
Absolutely.
Huber Heights has a lot of slab homes. That's a lot what we find. Kettering has a lot of them. Oakwood has a lot of them. So a lot of those homes is something that you'll see, and you'll get it even in the basement. I talk about a slab, but you got to remember it's the same plumbing under a basement slab than it is under a regular slab home.
Right.
Breakdowns. Oakwood has a lot of lines going into different drains that shouldn't be in the ground. And then tide going into a storm instead of a sanitary. And a lot of the times these breakdowns. So we have to make there's a lot of things plumbers, when they walk into the door, they'll see that they have to make adjustments for individuals, because most residential homeowners don't understand that. They haven't seen it before. So, and no one ever gave them the knowledge unless they see something like this. So and then once you bring it to their attention, a lot of people want that taken care of.
Yeah, and you had kind of touched on insurance. Can you talk a little bit more about that? How does homeowners insurance work in covering these issues if they are, say, under the slab as opposed to above the slab?
A lot of times, if it's above the slab, a key word for insurance is bursted. So in the wintertime, when a line's busted, it burst. Insurance is going to take care of it right away. It's burst. It's flooded the house, the drywall, things of that nature. Even a hose bib, you turn on a hose bib that hasn't been turned on, that you've left the hose on, and you flood the front room, it's covered. It's a busted pipe due to a freeze. They cover that. We've had our share of weather here, and in those cold seasons, that's when we see a lot of it. We work pretty close with Pure Clean and a couple other companies here in town that will help us. We'll take care of one part, they take care of the other. But the water lines themselves, that's the number one issue, is a busted pipe. There again, we get some bad leaky joints. 90% of the time, if it's above the floor, they take care of it. If it's below the floor, if they can rule it out not being a maintenance issue, and generally that's what a lot of them are, and not that you can really maintain the pipe, but they call it a maintenance issue. It's wear and tear, and it just wears the pipe down. Everything we put down that kitchen sink on an old galvanized or cast iron line, even copper, eventually it will corrode away. It's just inevitable. It's not a lifetime pipe. PVC right now, we feel that it's a lifetime pipe, but we'll see.
Yeah, all those old homes. I know in my own home, we've got the galvanized pipe, and you can see the areas where it's corroded. And actually, I had your guys out just a couple weeks ago to fix my drain line.
Yeah,
and
it was a tough kitchen sink.
Yeah, FYI, we're gonna send this snake down, and there's a chance, because you've got corrosion in the galvanized pipes, it might burst. You might want to get anything valuable away from that pipe. And fortunately, it didn't burst, but it's definitely something that if you're not looking for it, you should be, because it's pretty important.
Yeah, those cables have a lot of integrity to them. So when they get into a soft piece of pipe, they can definitely open that pipe. And we usually try to convey to our clients that, this is nothing we did. It's the pipe, and the integrity of the pipe is just weak. And letting people know that that's, if it looks bad, generally it is bad.
Right.
That's the first thing I tell them. It looks bad, then maybe that's something you want to, take care of, or just be cautious with what you put down a drain. There's a lot of people that have maintained drains and waited to do a remodel before they did anything. So you can tell them what not to put down and how to take care of something, just to kind of prolong it until they get ready to do a remodel.
Yeah.
So jumping back to what you said about the insurance claim, I think that's really important, because usually if it's a sudden accidental loss, that's when the insurance company is going to say, this is something we're going to cover. Whereas, that pipe wore down for 30, 40 years, however long, that's not really, sudden or accidental.
Yes, and that's the.
What about like backups, drain backups?
Well, straight backups, usually taken care of from an outside clean out. Insurance doesn't cover anything generally on the outside of the house. So if we're cleaning that main, you have big root problems because of breaks, old clay tile. We still have a lot of that in the systems. We run into those problems. Those are fix and repair or replace. And if you've got that, we would either replace it or line it. We do run a liner, a perma liner in that hardens up to be just like plastic. It's a 50-year guarantee. A lot of companies run these liners in. They work out very well, and it doesn't have to tear your yard up. It works in some applications, but not all applications. And it's something as a homeowner, if you ever have that, you want to request it to see if you ever had to have that replacement done, whether you want to have it repaired or see if you can't get it lined, and kind of weigh your options there, what you like to do. And same with a water line. If a water line is in the yard, insurance won't take care of that. So to go from the outside curb box to the house, that is your responsibility. So anything that happens in between there, unless you have your own third-party warranty, and there are companies out there that do that. And some of them there's a couple of them that we do work for that are really good. AWR is one of them. And we do a lot of work for them, and they pay exactly what that takes care to take care of the cost. Because today in the Dayton area, in some places, if you have a meter inside, they want you to move the meter to the outside. So that's a different expense. You got to put a meter box, things of that nature, and then you'll just have a line inside the house and the meter outside the house. So between Dayton and Montgomery County, a lot of those are getting required now to do so, and get them out of the basement. So there's some things that have changed on that, but there's no insurance that I know of other than a third party for outside the house.
Let me ask you this, Mike, real quick. For moving those boxes, when is that required? Is that required when the property transfers, or is that being inspected by the water company and being required when it's found?
So it's not grandfather clause. Let's say if you have a leak or repair, you have to put it in at that time.
Okay.
It would be if you are going to make a sale, change hands, it's okay. But as soon as you touch that water line on the outside for any kind of inspect, it has to be updated to the new regulations, new requirements. So, but I think it's a good thing. I like them out in the yard than I do inside. So.
Another question for you. What does it typically cost to do those outside the house repairs?
Well, you got to remember that can be a broad number because there's so many different, a typical, if you had just a regular meter box and a pull in, you could be as low as 2,500. You could be as high as 5,500. It just depends what you're working with, because not all the houses are the same. The distance of the pipe, then you've got excavation that's a part of it, and inspections, and all those you have to get a permit, inspection, backfill, put your line in, things of that nature. So there again, it just depends, and that goes along with sewer line. The water lines, always at 48 or deeper, shouldn't be any shallower than that. Sewer line, if you got a basement that's very deep, so shoring or something may be involved. So the excavation of that could be a little bit more expensive because you're doing a deeper sewer. So
Yeah.
there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of little things that can get into the cost that would be entailed with a water or sewer. But the nice thing about a sewer, you can do a sewer repair. You know, if your sewer looks real good and for some reason you just have one bad spot in there, a quick sewer repair there again, you could be $2,500. You're digging down, putting in some shoring, getting in there, getting out within a day. But when it gets a little bit more extensive and you're seeing people's yards dug up quite a bit, they definitely have a little bit more investment in that replacement.
Okay. What are some of the steps homeowners can take to kind of maybe save some costs on that if they do have an issue?
There's most of the time the plumber's got to take it from point A, or an excavator from point A to point B. There's not much on an outside project, like an inside. You know, if they remove cabinets, things like that, you can save money. Remove tile, carpet. People can definitely save money there because we're not doing it.
Right.
But on the outside of the house, there's not much that a homeowner could do because there's a lot of excavating, a lot of work that it's really not theirs to handle. You know,
Right.
You take it right off the bat.
Okay.
All right, Mike, I've got one for you. A lot of our customers often want to know like small tips and tricks, like things, maybe troubleshooting they can do around their house to know how to take care of things themselves. Are you open to costing yourself a little bit of business and giving us some advice on fixing stuff ourselves?
No, I think that's a great question because, you know, hose bibs, number one thing, you know, we get them every year, and generally it's because someone's left something on the hose bib. It's if you're best if you have an isolation valve, you can isolate it, leave it open. That's great. Just isolate it. Get that hose off there because the hose is holding water and it will freeze and it will burst. I bet you, you know, we're doing 25, 30 already this year just for the mere fact that that's what's happened. And that's something that needs to be looked at. Sump pumps. Always check your sump pumps before the big rains come. Go down, pull the float, make sure it's working. Make sure the discharge is outside the house that you can see it discharging and it's not got anything in the system that could back the pump up. People don't know that to look at that. If you've got a battery backup, run it through its cycles. You know, make sure that it works. Make sure the yellow light comes on. It's charging. Green light, it's good. You could pull your battery and even get it checked. Is another good thing to do. Sump pumps are very important. You know what we just had out of our main call center in Columbus, we had 800 service calls.
Wow.
We run a lot of people in Columbus, more than that in the Dayton area, but that rain was the largest and probably one of the worst that we've had in a very, very long time to have that many calls come in.
Wow.
And they were all sump pump calls. And a lot of people ended up putting in battery backups, which is a good idea. The other thing about a battery backup, if you have an alarm system that connected to your house, your alarm company can put a float inside there to let you know if you got high water and it will go to your phone.
That's cool.
Excellent idea. I mean, it's superb. I had one at my house. I liked it and it worked because believe it or not, I had one fail one time and it told me that we had high water, in my pit. So that you can't have that connected. I tell everybody to do that because it's just a peace of mind to have because now you got a battery backup and now you got something that's going to go to your phone to say, hey, you've got a problem, and still you come home and have the problem. Water heaters, it's always good to flush them once a year. Take the time and flush them. Buy you a little hose, run it to your floor drain, flush your water heater. It's always a good thing to do. We do water heaters almost every other day, and especially for the hardness in the Huber, Greene County areas, it's even better when you're doing it during those times. Your main line outside the what's that?
Just a second. Is that just for the tank water heaters?
Yeah, the tankless, you usually want to get that on a preventative maintenance. Homeowners can do that themselves. It's not a hard thing. It's a little technical, but anybody with a little knowledge and a little bit of training can do that and can flush them. And there's a not vinegar. Well, we can use vinegar. We can use a couple different things to flush a tankless water heater, but we've used a couple different types of descaler that we use to run through the heat exchanger. So that's not a bad, that's just doing that piece. I wouldn't get people in the burners and checking some of those things that goes on, but for a quick clean, what they actually need, because you can't lose a heat exchanger due to the hard water, homeowners can't do that. So that you can do it both on a tank and a tankless. And while you're there, make sure you check your furnace filter. I know it's HVAC. Number one calls for a
That's
furnace. And
HVAC.
I'm not a heating guy, but I want to tell you, check it, put it on your list, check your batteries to your, if you're like some of my neighbors, they'll check all their batteries for the fire protection, things of that nature, and then check it all the way down to the pump. And I have a couple neighbors that do that, and they do a great job. They're kind of like the tool around the house, but I think they're great at doing what they do.
Is that an annual thing?
Yes. Yeah. Annual. Some, if you wanted, there again, spring, fall, sometimes for the sump pumps, just, peace of mind. But, usually once a year of work, but them heavier rains in April, May is when we're getting the most calls on sump pump issues. If you got a main outside, you got a lot of trees, you got problems, PM it once a year. You don't have to replace that line. You got a plumber that tells you have to replace it. You may want to get a second opinion and see, PM the line. At one time, it'll probably break down. You'll have to replace it. It is what it is. But, you might be able to go 3, 4, 5 years and just keep your line PM'd and keep it clean. Roots come through certain areas. It is, but it doesn't mean the line's broke to where it's going to cause you a lot of issues. The roots are getting in and clogging you up sometimes, catching paper, things of that nature. But that's just a great idea for the outside instead of having the backup inside the house. Those are definitely a couple of good things to do. Be careful what you put down your disposals. I always tell, if you can put it in the trash can, disposals really for the excess, not the whole peelings of potatoes. Mother-in-law, because she'll put it down there and she'll call and it'll be packed full of potato skins. So just throw them in a waste can and, put all your extra stuff in there and then run lots of water behind it. I always tell you, if you run a lot of water, it helps move everything down the drain a little bit. It's right. Let's run water behind that. So on disposals, that's an issue. And if your disposal gets clogged up, your plumber generally will put a little tool underneath your sink. It's got a little S shape. Underneath that, there's a little crank, a little place where you can put that and just crank it around, and that'll free it up if you put too much inside there. So a lot of times it'll kick a little red reset button, just put it back, crank it. We get some of those calls,
Look,
feel bad you have to come in there to do that.
He just cost himself some business, guys, giving you that tip. So make sure you make use of that.
Yeah.
All right.
It's an easy fix.
I wanted to back up a little bit. You mentioned the hard water. I know that's a huge issue for Huber, Dayton. So is there any other concerns with that people need to pay attention to or precautions?
Well, I definitely would have a softener installed. I mean, number one thing, it'll get rid of all the white chalkiness that you can get on there from a dishwasher on your glassware. And it makes your fixtures last longer. If you have a shower door, it will just tear it up. I don't care how often you clean it. That hard water is just a bear. I'm a clean freak, and I just know. I've ran into a lot of people who have nice homes, but you can always see the hard water spots that have happened. So softener, and you don't have to have it cranked up to where it feels so soft that you don't like it and milky soft. You can adjust that softener a little bit, not to run as much, cycle as much. Kind of equip it to your stuff and your lifestyle, but they work well. Like I said, and then they lather up good. It's good for the washer. It's nothing better than having a softener in the house. And I know there's some water departments that are having some changes made and they're putting different systems in, but I'd still put a softener in. When you're still at a medium grain hardness, I would suggest putting a softener in. I think you'll still notice a difference on how the water feels. And what'll be the tell-all when people do these things is how your dishes look. You're going to find it right there in those hard water spots. You get up around the sink. People put in brand new sinks, maybe, and you see it more in a less high quality. It's not a high quality sink. The stains you get from it, the water's it's very hard on it. So it causes a lot of problems. That's where some of your pinholes. I mean, the hard water plays a big role in a lot of different things. So softener's the best idea and best concept.
Very good.
All right. Well, I think we've exhausted our questions. If you don't have any more, Daniel.
No, I don't. Mike, I'm watching the Facebook live chat, so we don't have any new questions coming in there. But unless there's any other, parting words, if you want to let people know how they can reach you, email, phone number, where you're located.
Well, we were originally out of Columbus. We are the Waterworks. And we're now at 5888 Executive Road in Huber Heights. And we can be reached at 937-233-8015 or 937-233-9672. So that's our two numbers coming into our call center that'll bring us right into the Waterworks. Other than that, just I know we're going through a rough time with this virus. We are here. If you need something, got a question, please call, ask for Mike. Even if it's not a service call, if I can help you, I'll help you. This has just been a trying time on a lot of people. So I've talked to a few people on the phone that kind of break down and cry over things like this that's happening. And we all feel the pressures. And I think we've all had our own ways of handling this virus. But, if you got a big plumbing problem, don't let it get you down. It's not as bad as what most people think. I've always learned in this field that when somebody panics is to be the calm one and walk them right through it. And then they find out, the problem wasn't as bad as what they thought. So
Right. That's
it does
awesome.
make a difference.
I think that's great advice for life.
Yes. Yes, sir.
All right. I think that's it. Mike, thank you so much for your time. I'm Daniel Zavadi with CCI Residential, Tyler
I'm
Block
Tyler.
with Keller Williams Advantage, Mike Kiminas with Waterworks. Until next time, guys, thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.